Thanks for that warm-up, Jemima. And now we're starting this month's show of What's Up in Global Law. We have a very august group of presenters. And as we sometimes describe the show, is Saturday Night Live for nerdy folks talking about law, business, and global trade. Let me introduce you to our guests, and then we'll get started in our journey and try to keep you entertained, but also informed with information about how, as a global community, we're available to support your aspirations. And in turn, we value your supporting ours. So I'm Chris Bennett, founder of TIL and TIL Group, TIL Group being a social impact legal tech startup, TIL being a social impact intellectual property law practice. And I admire our two guests significantly. First, let me ask each of them to introduce themselves briefly, and we'll start with Mike Patterson.
Live from Phoenix, it's What's Up in Global Law. Is that okay, Chris? Hi, I'm Mike Patterson in Phoenix. I'm part of Spencer Fane. We're 650 lawyers in 30 cities, but none international. But I am the international leader of our international market team, and about half of my practice is inbound and outbound, all areas. And we have a team of people who do things, and I'm the lawyer for the Canada-Arizona Business Council, and we do Mexico as well, and Europe and Asia and Australia. And glad to be here today. Thanks, Chris.
Thank you for that, Mike. Jacqui, how about yourself?
My name is Jacqui Cooper, and I guess in following your suit, Mike, I am live from Maryland and the Washington, D.C. area. Yep, the DMV. I am the CEO of the Blockchain and Legal Institute, as well as the CEO of the Maryland Blockchain Association, and also a partner at Cogent Law Group. And I'm excited to be here because of the fact that this space in blockchain, crypto, digital assets is ever changing, and AI as well. And so we always need to kind of keep up with what's going on compliance-wise in order to support our client.
Jacqui, thank you so much for being here. And as is our ever-present co-producer, Jemima, would you briefly introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. I'm Jemima Sculptor. You can call me Jem, the events manager at Global Chambers. We help connect leaders and businesses to global opportunity through meaningful events and collaboration. So I will put in the chat our website so you can check our upcoming events, and excited to connect with you all. And thank you for attending the Globinar.
Thank you, guest. And just as a caveat to folks in the audience, please actively put things in the chat. We'll have vocal questions at the end, but we want to be positioned to address the things that are of concern to you. And we're going to share with you what we think is the hottest concern today and why we think so. And in our hot topic session, its theme, it still seems to be global trade. From what we can tell, we have our president who's considering or mentioning firing the head of the Fed. We have tariffs. And I think the theme for this show today might be not just how do you survive, but how do you thrive? And one of the things I will mention is yesterday I was in a Global Chamber event on export-import operations, and someone described as the best kept secret of trade as being free trade zones and how they could be used to minimize tariffs, but also to create some tactical and strategic advantages. There are legal implications for that, and there are also business implications. So, Jacqui, Mike, do you differ that tariffs and trade are not the hot topics right now?
Ladies first, Jacqui.
So, for consumers, it might be considered a hot topic, but I don't know that they actually understand the impact on their wallet. You know, again, from the business side, for sure, because everyone who is doing services or products internationally, you have to think about the implications of that. But I think another hot topic that, you know, our president and his team has kind of created is the idea of what's going on within the cryptocurrency space. and the blockchain space. In fact, there was an executive order, I think it was on Wednesday or Thursday of this week, that actually dealt with AI, another innovative tech. And he said that he wants to have teachers educated on AI, and he wants students educated on AI. So I posted in LinkedIn, that's great. What are we teaching and who's teaching it? Because again, there is the top-down type of thing, and I'm in the education space as well as in the law space. And I know I'm in the elementary schools, and you have teaching teachers and then teaching students. And so there's a lot of policies that are being put into place, and then there's the application of those policies. How do we actually implement? So.
And Chris, I would add, I've been a free trader my whole life in terms of trade, and the USMCA is a free trade agreement, as are many other free trade agreements in the world. But we have, since Lutnick came in, scrubbed the entire Department of Commerce website and removed that word free and replaced it with fair. And the implication is fair to the U.S. What's fair to us? America First type of inference there. I think it is, it is a negotiation. A lot of Americans are for that, a lot against, but it is going to play out, and the markets are watching every day. Are we on again or off again with China? Are we on again or off again, with our trade negotiations? Is this going to work? Are the tariffs, and you can watch the news. You don't need me as the wonk to talk about that. But I think our relationship to China is more than just, we are so interconnected, and we're so interconnected with Mexico and Canada on our trade. These are not minor issues. They upset industries like automotive and everything where we're interconnected. And it's not just about trade. This is about our worldwide relationship with China, and has other implications toward how we're going toward Taiwan and other things. So yes, these are big issues. And I think what happens in the next 30, 60 days could be critical to our future.
Well, thank you for that, Mike. And I will say that in a prior life, I had a background in finance. And one of the key things that financial folks do in these environments is they risk adjust a lot of their calculations. And so we've seen that happen to the bond market. There's more risk because of the uncertainty. And I think you're spot on, you and Jacqui both, that the more we can create reasonable certainty, the more value, the more comfort we'll have.
If I could add, Chris, real quick, before the call we talked about, I have clients that are trying to make a decision. Do I close these 2 plants in Mexico? Do I close the business? Does the board decide to do this or that? And when tariffs are on one day and off the next, and on back and on again, off again, companies are having a rough time making decisions when the bouncing ball hasn't stopped bouncing.
Well said. And I think that segues us into our top 10 segment, where we ask 4 leading large language models or a search engine to tell us what do they think were the top 10 developments in the world on that day, which was yesterday, and then which one's most important. Let me just share one thing that I think is really helpful for our audience. There seem to be opportunities, if you can find the right space, to make money in certain of these instances. And I think you see the volume of trading, especially when you have a very volatile market. Some folks are making money. So one of the things we like to have come out of this now or later is making sure we're helping you to find some of your paths to making money and to doing well, even in a difficult environment. Now, if we ask these 4 large language models, they would tell you what they thought was important. We asked Claude, from Anthropic, ChatGPT for Perplexity as the search engine, and we asked Meta's Llama. We asked it the prompt at the top, as you might be familiar with large language models. What are the top 10 developments in the world today? And which one's most important? I'm going to ask our panel to give their perspective because we share with them all the results offline. But let me just point one thing out. Meta's Llama took development and thought it must be only one technology. It gave us the top 10 technology developments. We didn't say that. But it decided through whatever programming it has that it wanted to discern that developments were related to technology. One of the things we've observed is of the 4 shows we've done, only once did 2 of the LLMs agree, and that was on climate change. So they're saying, Claude says the most important today, the development is climate change. Perplexity says it's the escalation of geopolitical tensions and military conflicts. Meta, with their technology bent, claims it's artificial intelligence in scientific discovery. And last but not least, ChatGPT believes it's global economic instability. So it must have been listening to our discussion a few minutes ago.
Yeah.
Mike, Jacqui, audience, what do you think is the most important development in the world today? Why does it matter?
Ladies first, Jacqui.
I think the global economic instability that's being created actually by climate and by the wars. I mean, it sort of all interrelates, you know, because we are not isolated countries anymore. We are one major entity, that a living organism on the earth. And, you know, you see that with the EU, and whenever their policies get passed, how it implicates, you know, the economics somewhere else, whether it's AI policy or anything else like that. So I think that it's very hard to separate. I think it's all interrelated.
One fear that I have is whether the institutions, NATO and others that, you know, may be debilitated from this, and the United Nations and some of these institutions we built over 50 years, are we now going to move away from those? And are our allies going to move away from those? And are people going to make decisions that they're no longer going to focus on the US market, et cetera? So those things, I wonder if, you know, we're negotiating, and hopefully we can come back and see some resolution, but is this temporary damage that's being done, or is there going to be long-term consequences for some of this, and people making decisions around the globe towards us in the US? And I know a lot of our listeners may not even be in the US. You're not, you know, so it's not the us and the them, but we have had such a collaborative, nice run of things for decades, and we built, based upon this instability, we built entire industries like the automotive industry between countries, and semiconductor industry with Taiwan, et cetera. And if we upset those apple carts, I wonder what the fallout will be. India looks like it may be a winner in some of this. I was hearing this morning on Bloomberg. So who knows?
Well, thank you for that share. And I think as a group, the large language models cover the spectrum. I want to point out something that's at the intersection of business and trade and policy. And that's the fact that the U.S. has not only been repealing or abrogating agreements, but it's also been canceling contracts. From prior work in government, I know that there's a clause in contracts that allow you to cancel for convenience, but there's also a process. And I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop on some of these contract cancellations that open the government up to damages and to more friction in pursuing its policy, in addition to some of the litigation that's going on now. And the question might be, well, what impact does that have? Does it create just more instability? Or does it slow down volatility by trying to get the government to behave in a rational way according to norms? I don't know that yet, but I do know that a number of organizations are taking actions to try to hold the government accountable for some of these contract cancellations in different forms. And that could be another factor to create even more instability. We'll see. And speaking of what we'll see, We also at TIL have our own, not so large language model, but a cute one. In the lower right-hand corner, you see an image, and that's Tilly. That's our AI chatbot. So we asked Tilly to give us her viewpoint, and our CTO is her father, so we can call Tilly her viewpoint of what were the top 10 things in the world. Tilly said, I don't do global stuff. I just do intellectual property. So we make her available to our clients. So Tilly gave us the top 10 developments in intellectual property. And she said the most important one was artificial intelligence and intellectual property. Her rationale was that it's creating a changing environment. And that matters because if you're in a business, whether it's a for-profit or a not-for-profit, you probably have some intellectual property. Even at a personal level, as an individual, in my opinion, you're a walking, talking, breathing innovation factory. And intellectual property is the product of the mind. So be aware and look for opportunities to leverage what you have as your natural ability to create and protect it and monetize it. So you'll be able to grow businesses, protect not-for-profits, and help the world solve some major problems. Thank you, Tilly. And now we're going to start dealing and digging into solving major problems and creating opportunities by asking each of our panelists to share their why and why you might want to consider connecting with them. And we're going to start with Jacqui. Jacqui, take us on a journey.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. So a little bit about the origin story of the Blockchain Legal Institute. For those that might not know about me, I am in multiple career paths, both in education as well as in law. I guess my question is, should I be sharing screen or is it already shared for the website?
So we've shared the website. I don't know if everyone can see that.
Yeah,
and
I'll go ahead and share screen so that way I can make sure that it's up there.
Okay.
So with the Blockchain Legal Institute, it actually got started a few years ago because I've been in the space about 10 years, blockchain space, law a lot longer than that. And I found that it was hard to find resources. So the Institute got started really as a centralized library of decentralized resources. So every time that I go to a conference or anytime that I meet someone within the space, there's additional links and resources that are placed up on the website for support. And it's not a law firm, but it is a growing area that individuals can find information related to laws, compliance, just topics in general, because again, everything that we do has an overtone of some impact with law. And then as we evolved, because I'm very passionate about the education side, we decided to host virtual summits that are international, and we've hosted summits about sustainability. Also, interesting that you talk about economic zones. Our last summit in March was about SROs, sandboxes, and economic zones, and that was an international summit that looked at all around the world what is going on and the developments and the mindset. And then the one in next October, it will be all about consumers, and that's a very big topic. But again, from the perspective of news that's happening around the world, we also have different news releases and things like that we kind of highlight and feature on the homepage and that type of thing. So our whole focus is providing resource and research for those that are within our industry or our community. So if you have a research question within AI, blockchain, crypto, blockchain uses, reach out, because we are doing that research and we know the resources, or if we don't, we're learning about them and we're here to help. Also with professional development for those within the legal space, we are doing continuing education to help with both CLE credits as well as just professional vocabulary development. So that's a quick overview. And happy to kind of invite those that are within the Global Chambers audience to be speakers and participate within BLI's events, because we are, everyone has a skill set and knowledge base that we want to share. So, yeah.
Hi, Chris, you're on mute.
Hey, thank you for
sorry?
that, and Jacqui, thank you very much for that share.
Yep, sure.
So let's hand it over to Mike to talk a little bit about his practice in doing deals.
All right. I'm Mike Patterson. I lived in Latin America 10 years, a year in Costa Rica, and then a year out in Western Mexico, León, Guanajuato, and then 8 years in Mexico City. I sing in a band in Spanish, and I'm bilingual, and I really enjoy doing international practice. I am M&A in an M&A group and transactional corporate, and yet I do really quarterback for a whole team across the firm that does tax, intellectual property, labor and employment, and lots of cross-border issues, including litigation. But enjoy, and right now working on some tariffs with some clients, and also just M&A cross-border. And are you ready for me to go through this, Chris?
Yeah, we are ready, and Mike's going to undertake the Herculean task of going through 27 slides in less than 10 minutes.
Okay,
Go.
Next slide. Next slide. That's our firm. And what is the relationship when you're deciding on doing, this is on distribution agreements. I do quite a few international distribution agreements for clients, and you decide up front, what's the relationship? Are they a true distributor buying the goods and distributing? Are they a manufacturer's rep making the sales, we ship it? Or is it a joint venture? Next slide. And we're not in Kansas anymore, Dorothy. You don't take your uniform commercial code with you. You need to specify in a document what codes you're using and writing your own code, and how you're going to do dispute resolution, because it's not like doing distribution in the United States, where there is a lot of default in Article 2 of our Uniform Commercial Code. Next. And who are you dealing with at the company? And I know we have some of these on the call today. I see we have a GC or two, and et cetera. If you're dealing with the general counsel, maybe there's a greater care, or the CFO, maybe greater concern about the legalities and the risk. CEO may be concerned about, why are we doing this? What's the cost? What's the upside? Am I going to get hosed on this? And then the VP of sales may say, Mike, I need this by tomorrow because we have $1 million sale in Bogota, and I don't really know if I care so much about that. I just need this document signed. And then talk to my talk to my distributors. Sign this one-page authorization, please. Next page. The distributor may the answer for why we're doing it, and you guys know this, you all probably know this. I have a client, for example, that only 10% or less of their sales are international sales, but they are the most profitable sales that they're making, because they have paid lawyers and everybody to get into that country, into that Belgian market, Brazilian market, the Colombian market, etc., Asian market. They went through the hoops to get there, but now that they're in, it's not like they have 99 competitors like they have in the US. They may be the only one that makes this widget or distributes this widget. So, next slide. And the one pager from the distributor may be out of the blue, sign this, but it may be in Spanish, Chinese, Japanese, and appointing you and giving us total rights to import your product. And now we are you in Argentina. And so I encourage clients, don't do that. Oh, slow down. Oh, next slide. And by the way, if you want this deck later, you can have it. Chris will give it to you. If I do the one pager, what can I may have agreed to tax presence in that country. Really? Yes. Labor risk? Yeah. Licensing risk? Yep. Inadvertent appointment of an exclusive distributor? Yes. I know 2 or 3 countries I can say off the top of my head that if you do not disclaim being exclusive under this law and that law in their country, you are deemed to have granted an exclusive, even by that one pager you signed. risk on your intellectual property? Yeah. And risk of redistribution to additional countries or back into the US? Yes. I had someone gave a distributorship to Australia. I'm sorry, to Argentina. I did some research and saw that they were already redistributing into Chile and Paraguay. Next slide. Doing it right. Do your due diligence. You can work with the U.S. Commercial Service. A lot of really low cost services with the U.S. Commercial Service that can do research. We want to know: are they litigious? Are they solvent? Do they have experience? Their relationships and reputation. Does their family also own the national porn business for that country, etc.? I'm joking. Next slide. Hardball laws. These are the big issues. Many countries, there's hardball distributor favorable laws that no matter what the contract says, unless you carefully draft around it, make it very tough to terminate the distributor and actually even make them whole. Even though you fire them and get a new distributor, you may still have to keep paying the old one under the local law in Brazil, for example. Next one. Another one, exclusivity. I really encourage clients, think hard about exclusivity, even though this one may have fell out of the sky for you, that, this was free money from from Argentina, this big sale that we didn't even go after. There may come a day in 3 years from now where things are rocking in Argentina and they're not doing it and they're not meeting metrics, and you would like to have another secondary distributor. But if you've given away exclusivity, I always try to have them think about milestones and penetration. And if you don't meet those metrics, then you might lose your exclusivity. And if I'm not getting paid, your exclusivity is gone. Next, registrations. Distributors, international distributors say, hey, no problem, U.S. company, we'll pay for your registrations here. Slow down. You may never get those back. If you try to terminate them, you've given them huge leverage. They may have done you this favor real quick to get you into the country to be able to distribute. It may be worth your while you pay for those. You may establish, or you may even work with one. There's a company called Emergo, for example, that will hold the registrations for you internationally, but they're not. They just hold them. They're not your distributor, but then that allows you to terminate that distributor if you need to. Next. Dispute resolutions. Everybody would love, not everybody would love to be in the US. You really need to think about your product, what it is you're doing, what are the remedies you may need. And I have a client that uses Oregon law. I have a lot of that use neutral forums. And then I have, malpractice. One lawyer says it's malpractice not to do arbitration. No, we talked about that after some questions. Maybe not malpractice, because you may need to enforce something. In Latin America, for example, there's something called pena convencional, which is close, but not exactly. Liquidated damages, and judges in Latin America are much better at enforcing that than they are other remedies that we're used to, like injunctions. Next. Getting paid. Are you doing full payment before you ship? Are you considering XM and other credit insurance that maybe allow you to do a turn and they could sell twice, 3 times as much? But you need discipline. Don't get behind on payment internationally. Guarantees, letter of credit, backup promissory note. Is the pricing clear in the contract? When I talk to a local lawyer, what details do you need in here if I had a collection dispute? Next. The biggest, customers. Every distributor wants you to have no contact with their ultimate customers, but I've helped some clients be pretty savvy about holding informational webinars and things like that for the customers all over the globe. and they start to have contact with the mothership, and that way, if things fall apart, these people know where to come, and there may be non-compete issues, etc. However, you may want to leave the door open if you need to go in country. And then I will ask with you, do you have warranty issues? Are you doing service and maintenance on whatever it is your widget is? Next. Inventory. If there is a dispute in inventory, what happens with old inventory? What happens do you have programs where that can be revitalized, replaced? Next. Warranties. We can be the big bag gringo around the world, so assume that you may get that type of fight. Have insurance. Know what you're getting into on that. Don't assume less risk in the U.S. Next. Intellectual property. Our intellectual property friends here on the call can help you with this, but you really do need to protect your intellectual property each place you go, and don't assume that just because you registered it here in the U.S. that you're protected there. Next. And knockoffs coming back into the U.S. Languages. A lot of times an English contract is okay and enforceable in that country. However, if you go to the trouble to make a dual language and say this language controls an event of dispute, and this translation is the translation, you might, in some countries, avoid 3 months of litigation over what that word is in clause 17. And everybody, of course, at that time will argue over different interpretations and different translations. But if you've already done it up front, you may save yourself some hassle. Next. Taxes. You may want a gross up provision that if there are taxes, you pay them. And what we're contracting is I'm going to receive X net. And then make sure your clause is broad enough for the jurisdiction to include all classes of taxes, fees, stamps, registration, withholding, and who's responsible. Next. Got a new slide for me there? There we go. And I'll just jump through these real quick. Big issues, export, import, shipping and import, and then there's a tariff slide here too. And then next slide, and then we have, of course, foreign corrupt practices and economic sanctions that we need to be looking at, anti-corruption, anti-bribery, keep going. Tariffs, consider both ways now. We're in the game now where it's not only when you're deciding, we not only need to consider, well, what's the tariff toward the US, but what's the other country going to tariff us coming in, et cetera, as well. And the negotiation, the ball hasn't stopped bouncing here, so let's think about it. Next. Indemnification for their acts, their negligence, their taxes, their other business interests. You need insurance guarantee. Think about insurance guarantees and additional insurance certificates. Next. Other tips, and this is almost the last slide. Consider notarizing documents that you don't notarize now. The reason is the Hague Convention on Apostilles will allow you, in the event of a time of a registration or time of anything documentary, but particularly in the event of a lawsuit or a collection or a banking issue, to take that document cross-border without having to do a month's procedure with their office of their Hague office in Mexico City, in Bogota, in Taiwan. And there's me. Okay, Chris, can you go back one slide? I just wanted to see if I missed one other thing on that last slide. Consider a drop-down entity in the US below your mothership to be the international that does this, because of tax purposes. If there was a lawsuit back up, we'd like to shut you out of the mothership's assets out of that. And thank you.
Mike, got to give you a round of applause for that. That was an exercise in speed slide reading. And now let's build on that by talking a little bit about hot mic moment. We looked at the chat and some kudos, some applauses, and a few comments. And what it brings to mind for me is I listen to what you're talking about, Mike, in due diligence. It's analogous to know your client or know your customer in a lot of industries. But we have Jacqui and we have blockchain, where anonymity is one of the key features for blockchain. How does all this work out to create opportunities for our audience, for the Global Chamber? How do we give them some guidance on creating opportunities?
So not every business needs to use blockchain, but however, there are a lot of blockchain business use applications that it can. And so again, I would, the first thought that comes to mind, if you're not sure if there is a business use application for your type of business, reach out to me, because of the fact that more than likely there is. Now, that's the first thing. The second thing is there are many blockchains that you can build on. And there's public, there's private, and there's hybrid. So you have to decide, first of all, what is the purpose of your using this underlying tech, and how is it going to help you? How is it going to help you as a business, and how is it going to help you, your customers? And is it easily usable for your customers if you decide to use some aspect of the blockchain technology? So there's that. And then the reliability of the company that you, not your company, but if you're using the blockchain tech, you have to think, okay, how reliable is that company, that protocol, that entity? And then you also have cybersecurity that you have to think about. Blockchain is definitely transparent, but it's also anonymous. It's also timestamped. So there's a lot of, and it has a lot of applications, but you really have to kind of parse it to decide what is good for you and how do you integrate it. I've interviewed over 350 people around the world over the last 10 years for my talk shows and doing research for BLI. I'm amazed at the application uses. I was talking this morning over in the Netherlands, within the governments, within private industry. So that's why I'm saying our Institute's library is really just the surface. If you have a question, reach out, because the long-term cost of investing in this might save you, or maybe it shouldn't even be approached. You really have to kind of do that analysis like every other tech. You just don't kind of go towards the fad of implementing it simply because that is the trend, but there can be some definite advantages to it.
Jacqui, thank you for that, because we were using blockchain for some of the relative immutability features of it. In supply chain, large organizations, like you mentioned, different features, like Walmart, are using it to confirm the authenticity. And we're using that for intellectual property. So I guess this may come together if we have this technology we're using, even though it has an anonymous feature, it also has some authenticity to protect intellectual property and create asset values that it might be of interest to your clients and customers in determining whether or not they want to do a deal, confirming that they have legitimate intellectual property and assets.
Yeah, there are a lot of diagnostics that go into it, and I would just say, along with Jacqui, it's interesting to me to see clients who, I mean, in this whole discussion, even back on trade, will this bring back manufacturing back into the U.S.? And some people are saying, well, even in those countries, there is a shift to using robotics and to do automated systems and even automated processes with blockchain. And so manufacturing is just changing worldwide, whether it's there or here. Who knows if someone was going to build a new plant and move that thing from China to somewhere else, whether it would really look the same as it does in China. It may not. It may be a blockchain-driven robotics driven, where it's not going to produce a job for, you know, a job for a guy like it was in 1950. It may not be that same job.
Well, thank you for that. And I think that's something that I've heard and seen from others, both in this chat and elsewhere, that even if the strategy of bringing manufacturing back, it would be different because of the technology impact, the capital flows. In some countries are structured to do some things better than others. And it's really tough to fight against that. So I guess the ask would be, any suggestions to the audience on how they can create economic opportunities or reduce risk with some of the things that we've talked about today? Anyone want to take that one on?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Mike. I'm still thinking through how to kind of phrase this.
Seeking opportunities. People need to be ready to pivot. I don't care if you're a 70-year-old company and you've always done it this way, and you've always been successful, and you are out at the forefront of, you have, you know, great market share, 60% of your industry, whatever. That the apple cart is upsetting. The apple cart is changing. Things are moving, and you need to be talking. You need to be thinking about it, talking to others, talking to your finance professionals, talking to your intellectual property people, experts like Jacqui, and I would hope legal too. But you need to be talking to people and thinking about it. And the conversation of last week may be different this week with the new set of dominoes and cards that you are dealt. I heard someone this morning on a morning show I was talking to. They said, "Wow, the market has made it through another week, so at least we have 2 days to take a breather until Monday." And the other person on the show said, "Well, that's not the case anymore. Things change over the weekend, even in the markets, in the futures, in the Asian markets, and the time zone differences. There's not just one market anymore, the New York Stock Exchange or NASDAQ. There are 30 markets around the world that matter, you know what I mean, and drive things."
I would tag onto that and say that, and again, this is exactly why I created BLI. It's about vocabulary development, because innovative tech over the last 10 years has changed dramatically. And where I started my journey of learning what I thought was about cryptocurrency, and then learn more about what is the underlying tech behind it, which is blockchain, and then learn about IoT, and then learn about all these other, you know, AI and other things that have been evolving. In order for a company, no matter what the product or service, you have got to be having a touch point across the globe as to what the technology is doing, where you might or might not want to integrate it, and what is the trend that's going to impact your industry. Because if you're not aware of the development of the AI tools, you might not need to integrate everything. But if you don't see where that's going, then your company might be the last to integrate something that maybe would save you time or money or support your customers. So really, this research is critical for your future growth, as well as we've talked about the tariff side. It's also critical for your economic development, because it's hard to budget and plan a business if things keep changing. We've talked about that. However, you can still see, you can never predict the future, but you can look forward and you can see, okay, these seem to be the areas that are coming. Even going back to the EU, they have passed different laws, whether it's with the crypto or AI. They've given like 2 to 3 years for companies to, or in climate, saying, okay, you need to implement this. How many of us procrastinate and wait to the last minute to take a look at our board structure or our other, you know, ways that we do things? And then we realize, oh my gosh, there are penalties now because I haven't put things in place. Where if you had long-term planned, even though those things might have changed, it's might have made it less costly and more cost effective for you and your consumers. So anyway.
Hey, Chris.
Yeah. Hi, Doug.
Hey, how are you? Jeff Darr is on the call, and Jeff is the premier expert on arbitration and international arbitration. He's led 4 California international arbitration weeks. Just another successful one just occurred, and it's a big topic, but I wanted to at least introduce everyone to make sure that everyone knows Jeff and his expertise in arbitration. And Jeff, thank you for joining today. Probably not enough time, but presume there'll be another time where you can dig deeper into that important topic that relates, I think, to what you guys are talking about.
For sure.
But
Definitely.
Jeff,
I would just say, Jeff, at some point we might like to have you come in and be a guest presenter. It sounds like what you would share would be very timely.
Happy to do so. I speak all the time on international law topics, like once a month or more often, and I work closely with lawyers all over the world in all regions, including Latin America and Central America. But my sweet spot is primarily in cross-border disputes and dealing with recognition enforcement issues. International arbitration, yes, but also court disputes involving issues of jurisdiction, and I do this all over the world. I'm right now trying to enforce a federal court judgment from Alabama in China, for example, which is quite a rare event, and we're about to have a third hearing in a somewhat remote part of China. We've already had 2 5.5-hour hearings, so happy to present sometime, and we could also probably something on just topics. CISG, the Convention on International Sale of Goods, that sort of ties into the topics we're dealing with today. And I've done more distribution disputes and solved many recently without litigation that are cross-border. But I've also acted as an expert witness in Netherlands and other places on U.S. issues. There's friendship agreements that the U.S. has with many of the countries you have distributions with that may or may not have most people don't even know about them in either country. So a lot of fun issues that we could all explore.
Well, thank you for that, Jeff. And I want to apologize to the audience. I think we're a couple minutes past our mark, but I will say I'm going to ask that we consider Jacqui and Michael's last remarks as their closing statements, and just give a shameless round of applause for their contribution. And also share that our next show, we'll have a professor from the Kent Law School, Jordy Goodman, and also Daphne Ekpe. They're going to talk about patents, and they're going to talk about intellectual property. And our belief is that's going to be a set of resources that will be useful to you as you navigate these challenging times. So thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Jemima, Michael, Jacqui, Doug, and everyone in the audience. Look forward to our next show for Friday of next month. Goodbye, everyone.
Bye, guys. Thank you for everything.
great conversation. Thanks all. Thanks, Jack. Mike, great to see you last night.